and all is still go as we monitor our status for it. Good luck and Godspeed.
Have you ever had a premonition, a feeling that something dreadful was about to happen?
No, Mother, I have not been drinking.
Do you happen to have a pair of birds that are just friendly?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I have to go back into the past once more, just once more.
This is HitchPod, a podcast counting down the 20 best movies of the wonderful 20th century director Alfred Hitchcock. In this podcast, we rewatch a Hitchcock movie and then we talk about it. I'm Dan Lipke and I'm recklessly tossing my hat onto the bed.
And I'm Kat Jones, and I'm demanding to be let into the library after closing because this time around we are rewatching the 9th best Hitchcock movie as voted on by our listeners, and that is Shadow of a Doubt, 1943.
Yes, Shadow of a Doubt from 1943. What else happened in 1943?
Well, I mean, most of the world was busily bogged down in terrible world wars, World War II.
Yes, but on a happier side, somebody invented the slinky.
How did they have enough leftover metal to be doing that?
I think that's what happened. They had like leftover springs, and some dude just noticed that, oh, wait a sec, if you put this at the top of a staircase, it just walks itself down there. Isn't that clever?
Amazing.
And then they marketed and sold it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, they were also busy putting metal into bras.
Yes.
So the movie producer Howard Hughes designed a bra for his actress Jane Russell, who presumably had pointy boobs, and it was a conical bra, and it was featured in a movie in 1943, The Outlaw.
Yes. Over in music, we've got the best-selling song of the year was Harry James's song, I've Heard That Song Before, which is ironic because I've never heard that song before.
I have. That's a fantastic song. It is a good one, and I should come back.
Yes.
And also in music, we had Duke Ellington. He was performing at Carnegie Hall, and those concerts are well recognised, iconic, and so on for their greatness.
Yes. In the world of science, we had Oswald Avery. He was busily proving that DNA was the basis of evolution, genes and chromosomes.
Was that back then?
Yeah, people thought, oh, maybe it's proteins are the key. And he's like, no, this DNA, look at this spiral. Isn't that awesome?
Wow.
Yep.
Incredible.
Yes.
So back to the war effort, copper was really valuable, so they needed to use something else to make their money. So in the USA, the mint started making their pennies from steel instead of copper.
Yeah, very, very interesting. We also have the best-selling book in the US.
Oh, wow. What was that?
That was The Robe by Lloyd C. Douglas, and this is apparently a historical novel about the crucifixion of Jesus and what happened to his clothes afterwards. So there you go.
Right. So fictionalised, presumably.
Presumably, yes. I'm not sure he went back and interviewed anybody.
No.
It was a big hit. It was on the bestsellers list for nearly a year. Later adapted into a film, so presumably we need to watch The Robe at some point.
Yeah, maybe.
Or perhaps I'm more interested in seeing Jane Russell in The Outlaw.
Yeah, I am too. And of course, you go into The Onion, the wonderful parody newspaper, and they have gone back in time to do some parodies of 1943.
Yeah, so from their front page dated November 21st, 1943, there's a great big headline which says, Betty Grable appointed head of US Army Special Masturbation Fantasy Squadron. So there you go. Everybody must do their part for the war.
Yes, indeed. Yes. That's true. But 1943 also saw the release of Shadow of a Doubt. And did Shadow of a Doubt have much in the way of war mentions?
I don't think so, no. I think it was completely free of any mention of the war.
So I guess it was set, in another slightly different time.
Yes.
Anyway, we're about to enter the recap. If you have not seen Shadow of a Doubt, we doubt you would be listening to this podcast, but you may not have seen it. I'm about to spoil it. Right, so here we go. We're starting off with a very noir setting, and Charlie Oakley is his name. He's played by Joseph Cotton. So he's sitting on his bed, lying on his bed, loads of money all around the place, spilling over onto the floor. He learns there are mysterious men after him. So after a quick chase, he exits that room and he heads to California to visit his sister and her family. We get the impression that he is a bit nefarious, potentially, but the family is very plain and boring and ordinary.
Yes.
He sends a telegram ahead to alert them that he is coming, and the telegram is great news for his niece, who's also called Charlie, but her name's Charlotte Newton. She's played by Teresa Wright, and she absolutely adores her Uncle Charlie. She's been getting really bored with life in Santa Rosa. We know this because I guess she just tells us.
Yes.
It's not shown as told. Anyway, she was about to send a telegram to him asking him to visit. So these two are totally in sync and on the same wavelength.
Yes.
Uncle Charlie arrives. He always comes with gifts. This is no exception. There's a ring for niece Charlie, a beautiful ring. But, this ring, if you give it to a niece who's got sharp vision, this ring has someone else's initials engraved inside.
Should Uncle Charlie have visited an optometrist perhaps before he
Yes.
left? He clearly needs some kind of reading
Yes,
glasses or
that's right.
corrective lenses.
You should always go from your jewel shops or thieving straight to an optometrist.
Yes.
Anyway, Uncle Charlie's also a bit sassy. He wants to destroy a newspaper that contains information about him, and young Charlie correctly surmises there's a story about him in the paper. Anyway, that makes her suspicious. Also suspicious is a couple of dudes who turn up. There's always a couple of dudes chasing Uncle Charlie, and they want to interview the entire family, supposedly, for a mysterious survey. I guess this was a great subterfuge back in the 1940s.
So. There must always be some reason to pop in to visit a family. A random survey is as good an excuse as any.
I wonder when the police started to abandon this strategy.
This tactic.
It certainly wouldn't work these days. Anyway, the family, they're delighted. They want the attention, but not Uncle Charlie. He's a bit more reclusive. He believes these dudes are in fact undercover police detectives, and they are. So niece Charlie starts dating one of them, the younger one of them, and is told that Uncle Charlie is one of two suspects being tailed at opposite ends of the country under suspicion of being the notorious Merry Widow murderer. That is a bit of a tongue twister.
Merry Widow Murderer.
Merry
You've
Widow
got to say that
Murderer.
very slowly.
Yeah. Niece Charlie does some further investigation in the library. She tracks down the newspaper article that Uncle Charlie destroyed and learns that those initials were engraved in the ring. They were matching one of the murdered women.
Yep.
Anyway, Uncle Charlie gets a bit overconfident here. He suddenly goes on a massive rant one night at dinner, expressing specifically his hatred of rich widows. He calls them fat, wheezing animals. I mean, he doesn't come right out and say, therefore, I want to murder them and take all their money. Anyway, niece Charlie gets the message loud and clear, nonetheless. The two of them have a drink in a bar, and Uncle Charlie admits he's a suspect. He tells niece Charlie not to tell her mother, his sister, because that news would devastate her.
Because she dotes on Uncle Charlie.
That's right.
Her baby brother.
He's lost one member of the family, but he wants to keep the other one in the dark. Anyway, around about now, news comes through that the other suspect, we presume this was a completely innocent man, but anyway, the other suspect was chased by police and killed by a plane propeller.
Yep.
Unnecessarily gruesome, but anyway, this is great news for Uncle Charlie because this poor guy's now assumed to have been the murderer all along. So Uncle Charlie is exonerated. Anyway, niece Charlie is still a loose end that Uncle Charlie wants to tie up. So he tries to accidentally kill her by loosening some back stairs that she walks down, then locking her in a garage with a running car with exhaust fumes. None of this works. So Uncle Charlie becomes even more brazen and he decides to leave town, somehow tricking young Charlie to stay aboard the train as it leaves with the intention to shove her off the train to her death. Anyway, she turns the tables somehow and shoves him off the train where he falls into the path, again, unnecessarily gruesome, falls into the path of an oncoming train. And that's pretty much the end of the movie.
Yep.
So anyway, if you want a more detailed recap and a discussion, you can go to season 1, our discussion of Shadow of a Doubt, currently out from behind the paywall on the main feed. Go have a listen to that as well.
Do you have blood all over your shower curtains? Crop dust in your best suit? Bird poo on your jungle gym? Then you need Hayes Laundering Services. Hayes, cleaning up filth since 1934. Okay, this is ordinarily where I do 3 jokes and a limerick, but I started to write the joke here, and then I had a really good idea for one, and it just expanded out longer and longer, and basically became an entire sketch.
It's probably got 3 jokes in it though, right?
Yeah,
Your entire
definitely.
sketch?
At least 3 jokes in it.
Okay.
So there's a full sketch about how Shadow of a Doubt is Hitchcock's favourite movie. It's a deleted scene from a 1972 interview with Dick Cavett, and you can read all about that. Read the entire sketch. We're not going to perform it here. It's too long. It probably works better read than in audio form. So go to hitchpodonline.com/doubt, and that will take you directly to the sketch. You can read that and enjoy that.
Yes.
Although I do have the limerick. I wrote the limerick before I started on the joke. So
let's go.
You do get something here. Mm-hmm. You ready? So thumbs up or thumbs down on the limerick. Here's Uncle Charlie, played by star Joseph Cotton. He's a murderous cad, a scoundrel quite rotten. "Oh, uncle, please, won't you cease," pleads his young namesake niece, "killing merry widows for wealth misbegotten."
Oh, very nice.
Yes.
Cease and niece is a good rhyme there.
Yes.
Excellent.
So, what did we notice on our second time through this, or whatever time through it is for you?
I wondered, when do we realise that he is, in fact, the murderer? Because it's not kept from us, the viewers know pretty early that he's definitely a murderer. When do we actually realise that?
It's not spelt out in that opening scene. In that
No.
opening scene, he could just be a guy being chased by the mafia or whoever, hoodlums,
Yeah.
bad guys. Those two people tailing, it could be anybody.
Just living in a bad area, someone trying to get his money.
Yeah. I guess the first time we really start getting suspicious was probably the gift of the ring, right? Is there
Yes.
any time earlier than that where we're convinced that maybe he's done something wrong?
No, and then there's also the musical interlude that comes through, which is the Merry Widow
Waltz?
music,
Yeah.
waltz. But I'm
Operetta,
not sure
something?
entirely where that comes from, but
Yeah.
that's supposed to make us suspicious because that's implying that he's out dancing with various Merry Widows.
Yes.
But the ring certainly is the first suspicion. The newspaper article, I mean, all of that is still circumstantial. So
Yes.
I guess I was sort of hoping, is there a moment where we didn't need the police detective to just literally tell us what was going on?
Yeah, I don't think we needed. To be honest, I don't think we need the
No.
police detectives at all in this movie. One of them's there for a love interest, but apart from that, I think it would be a better movie if she
Yep.
worked it out herself. And you just don't need the police thing.
No.
Police there at all.
No, because he doesn't end up needing to be arrested.
No. Yeah. So we can.
It would have
come
made the
back to
movie a
that-
lot
that-
shorter, perhaps.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah.
And you do lose the love interest, but I don't think that's a great loss in this particular movie.
No, it's not much of a romance, really.
No, exactly. My feelings of this were pretty similar to the first time around. I didn't fully appreciate it the first time around. I know it's Hitchcock's favourite movie
Yep.
of his own. I know it's one of the more acclaimed movies, but it still didn't grab me.
Doesn't
It didn't
grab
grab me
you,
the
yeah.
first time, didn't grab me this time. I can understand why other people like it. I can see all the positives of it. I love Joseph Cotton's performance. I think he's...
Yeah, and Teresa Wright is amazing in this as well. They're both extraordinarily good.
Yeah, I think it's just a little bit too plot light
Yeah.
for me, perhaps.
Yep.
Like there's a lot of tension between these two characters, the Charlies, but
There's not many twists.
There's not many twists in the plot.
It's fairly straightforward, I
Yeah.
agree. It's a little bit too straightforward, and that's kind of where I landed as well.
Yeah. Although one thing I did enjoy, which I don't think I noticed the first time around, was our introduction to the two Charlies and the way that Hitchcock has this lovely parallel panning through whichever city they happen to be in. So we start with Uncle Charlie, and he's in, I'm not sure where, he's New York or somewhere. He's in some city where it's there's poverty, there's abandoned cars, kids playing stickball, and we go through to him in the lying on the bed with all the money around. And then when it's time to meet niece Charlie, we pan through Santa Rosa, and it's clean, friendly shots, leafy trees everywhere. It's all this gorgeous, massive house, and into her on the bed as well. So it was a very neat parallel there.
Yeah, the parallels of the two of them lying on the bed. I mean, that is a wonderful starting point.
Yeah.
It's really great. And there possibly could have been more of that throughout the movie. There after the telegram moment, there's not that many other moments where they're aligned. They start to diverge, don't they, from the moment that he arrives.
I think that's another thing. I don't feel like it was explored as much as it was set up to be. That you set them up as these two parallels who are somehow intertwined.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really follow through to the rest of the plot, or at least if it does, it's beyond my ability to recognise.
And maybe there could have been
subtle.
some opportunities for some name mix-up
Yeah,
there.
yeah, potentially, yeah.
So I think that would have been, and potentially, even potentially, if the relationships had been different and they actually had the same surname as well, that might have been even more interesting.
Yeah. That's
And then you could have brought in a detective at that point.
chasing the wrong Charlie. Yes.
Perhaps.
Yes. Anyway, maybe we can explore that further when we get to what Hitchcock might have changed if he'd had however many years to think about this, 80 odd years to think about this.
Yeah.
Before we get to that though, let's go through the most famous scene of this particular movie and see if it's overrated.
Women keep busy in towns like this. The cities, it's different. The cities are full of women, middle-aged widows, husbands dead, husbands who've spent their lives making fortunes, working and working. Then they die and leave their money to their wives, their silly wives. And what do the wives do, these useless women? You see them in the hotels, the best hotels every day by the thousands. Drinking the money, eating the money, losing the money at bridge, playing all day and all night, smelling of money. Proud of their jewelry, but of nothing else. Horrible. Faded, fat, greedy women.
But they're alive. They're human beings.
Are they? Are they, Charlie? Are they human or are they fat, wheezing animals? And what happens to animals when they get too fat and too old?
All right, so that's surely the most famous scene of the movie.
Yes,
right?
I think so. It's probably a little bit too much, but I think it is nice for young Charlie to have this sort of turning point where she really switches over to, I thought Uncle Charlie was so wonderful and now he's clearly a bit of a monster.
Yeah. I mean, he's terrifying delivering it. I love the moment when she says, you know, they're still people, and he just goes, "Are they?"
Yeah.
He's incredible. If anything, I think it's just too monstrous. I think everybody at the table should immediately have gone, "This guy is nuts."
Yeah, move the chairs away from him.
Yeah. I mean, only young Charlie seems at all upset about it. Uncle Charlie's sister, the mother, just says, "Oh, don't talk like that in front of my club when you speak to the women."
Yeah,
it's just like, you might want to give him a bit more of a dressing down than that.
And also, he didn't really have a previous recent history of making startling observations. You know, some people make startling statements to provoke a reaction.
Well, look at Rope, for example.
Yeah.
In Rope, you had those guys, and they spent
all the time,
most of the movie just trying to provoke people, and that's just part of their character. This just came out of nowhere and was... it's a great speech, but it is very intense.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was a fantastic speech.
Yes, it is.
Incredible.
It's a great moment in the movie. So yeah, I that's probably not overrated.
Maybe slightly overrated.
Maybe slightly, but it's still great.
It is still great.
Yes. What about an underrated scene? Well,
so I think the underrated scene at the start is everyone being so excited about getting a telegram. The young, we don't really see very much of the young girl and the young boy, but they're very present at the start when we're trying to set up the happy family life. And the way that they're all being self-important about getting the telegram was very cute. It was very exciting.
Yeah, we spend several minutes on the logistics of how they get a telegram, how they're going to get the message, who gets to call back, who was supposed to write things down, but there wasn't a pencil. It's like, all right, there's a lot of detail going into receiving this telegram from Uncle Charlie.
Yeah.
I did like the little sister saying that she was too distracted to find a pencil to take a proper message, because I'm trying to keep my mind free of things that don't matter. So off you go, woman at the telegram office.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. Someone might be sick. Yeah, very funny.
And the father was also concerned that his sister had just got a driver's license, so surely this had something to do with that.
Yeah. And then the mother shouting into the phone, the daughter telling her she doesn't have to use modern technology in that way.
Yeah. I guess it's just a great way of showing, if young Charlie is complaining about how humdrum their life was, the fact that there's this much to do about a telegram very much expresses, these guys don't live the most exciting of lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So over on Patreon, we've also been rewatching some of our favourite movies after Hitchcock's death in 1980. We look at them through a Hitchcock lens. So we've just released discussions on Being John Malkovich, and last month it was Little Miss Sunshine. And I think we're going to round out this little series of What Would Hitchcock Do movies with American Fiction, which came out earlier this year, maybe late last year.
Yeah, it was in the Academy Awards for last year, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And then once we've done that one, we'll revert to some of the more classic Hitchcock-esque movies of earlier decades.
That's right. It's been fun doing modern ones, but we want to go back to Hitchcock now. So there's lots of old movies we can have a look at.
Yes. So anyway, if you'd like to listen to us talk about those movies or any of the upcoming Hitchcock-esque movies, you can become a patron of HitchPod. You can just do that by going to patreon.com/HitchPod. For $2 a month, you get access to all these movies we've been doing, and we've done dozens and dozens of these movies now. And of course, every single Hitchcock movie that we covered in the first season. So go ahead and do that. $2 a month.
So, of course, this is number 9, and we've been doing the top 20 according to our listeners. So the 9th spot ranking. Did you think this one would end up in the top 10, Dan?
I wouldn't have put it in the top 10, but I sensed that it was pretty highly rated, so I think I expected it to hit the top 10. Somebody voted it second. Was it the highest ranking you got? Nobody voted at number 1, which is a bit
does
of a
that mean
surprise.
Hitchcock didn't vote? Hitchcock didn't vote.
No, very disappointing.
Okay.
The lowest ranking it received was 21st.
Right.
So
I think I had it number 19 in my original.
Yeah, although we didn't vote in this poll.
We did not vote in this poll. I'm talking about my original poll out of 52 movies.
Yes. The percentage who had it in their top 20 was 87%. So that's 87% of all votes. Some people didn't have it in their list at all because presumably they'd never seen it. And the percentage who had it in the top 10 was 67%. But we also always check because the patrons got extra weighting in the poll because of their patrons and therefore special.
Yeah.
So we always check the difference between where the movie would have ended up if the patrons hadn't been given special powers, and that would have pushed it forward to number 6. So the patrons like it less than our non-patrons.
Yeah.
So they're more in line with our views. But yeah, the patrons pushed it back to 9th, which is where it sits.
Yep. And of course you did some Twitter polls as well.
Yes. So I asked, who is your favourite male character in this movie? Who do you think got the nod here?
I guess it has to be Charlie.
Yeah, Uncle Charlie, 70% of the votes. Herb, the next door neighbour crime buff, he got 30%. So
he was the second highest.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about the favourite female character?
Just on the male character, not too many male characters in this.
Not
movie.
a lot, no. The love interest is pretty boring. The father,
But
it was all Uncle Charlie. The male characters. Favourite female character?
It has to be Charlie.
It is Charlie. She also got 70%.
Yep.
Other votes were split between the mother, the sister, the librarian.
Oh, the librarian, yeah.
Yes.
And some of the girlfriends. She kept bumping into a lot of...
that's true.
Honestly, for a tiny little town, or maybe it's not that tiny, there was a lot of people out on the street at night.
Yeah, they were everywhere. There's
crowded.
police there saying, stop,
Yeah.
wielding the traffic. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes. I also asked, which of the following songs would you least like to have stuck in your head, given that Charlie had a song stuck in her head? I thought, what might be the modern day equivalent? I asked people to check between Bop, Mumbo Number 5, The Macarena, and Who Let the Dogs Out.
Yeah.
People were pretty evenly split amongst all those
All
movies.
those songs, yeah.
Yes. They all thought they're pretty terrible to have
They are
stuck
pretty
in your head.
terrible, and now we're desperately hoping no one listening have those songs stuck in their heads
Or
now.
all 4 being played at once in your head.
Yeah.
Yes. The final question I asked, or the final poll question was, can you make a house out of newspaper? Top answer there was no, 54.5%. Prefer not to answer, 36.4%. So keep that under your vest.
Yes. I think most people can probably make a pirate hat out of a newspaper, but the house was a step up.
It was quite the
sure.
feat. Yes. And then the final question I did ask was, what was your favourite scene in Shadow of a Doubt?
Yeah.
And we had a couple of responses to this. We had Film Guy 1997. He said the bar scene. He says he loves the quote, "I love jewellery, real jewellery."
Yeah, that was from the barmaid or the attendant or whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
We also had Dominic Angardi piping in saying his favourite scene was his train arriving in a cloud of black smoke.
Oh, yes.
And the train arriving, there was also the weird behaviour where he's pretending to be very sick and came hobbling out of the train. I still don't fully get why he was bothering with that.
So that was just to prevent anyone from spotting him leaving town or from disturbing him?
But they made a big point of him not ever having had a photo taken of him, so it did seem very odd. And it wasn't as if he avoided the authorities. They still somehow managed to track him down.
Straight away.
Yeah. So all very strange. We did get another question about this movie from our good friend and patron Norman Bates.
Yes, okay. The question is, we learned from this movie that throwing a hat onto a bed is bad luck.
Yep. I did not know that before.
What other 1940s superstitions would you like to have learned about?
Thanks, Norman.
Did you do some research on this?
I did some research on this. So here are some actual superstitions from around that era. We'll claim those 1940s. So these are actual superstitions that I uncovered. So apparently, eating the last bite of bread from a loaf will cause you to become a gossip.
Wow.
Spilling salt means you'll get into an argument with your spouse.
Yes, about
presumably
who's going to clean it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Putting new shoes on the table will delay your next promotion.
Oh, good grief.
That's very specific.
Yeah, that's very specific. I knew that putting shoes on the table was bad luck. I think I knew that throwing a hat on a bed was bad luck too. I think I just thought it was because someone might sit on your hat and then your hat would be ruined.
Well, perhaps. This one still is well known today. Breaking a mirror is 7 years of bad luck.
Yep.
But this is a portion of that superstition that I wasn't aware of. You can avoid the 7 years of bad luck if you bury the shards of the mirror at a crossroads at midnight.
Wow.
Yes.
Amazing. I would have thought that would have been pretty bad luck as well if a car came along.
Yeah. Gifting a knife or scissors cuts the friendship unless a coin is exchanged.
Wow,
you can't
that's
give
incredible.
a gift of a knife or scissors.
Yep.
And this was crazy. Dropping an umbrella indoors means a man will soon propose marriage.
Good grief.
Got to be careful with your umbrellas.
All of these objects, I like how they're all involving everyday objects. It's fantastic.
Catching a falling leaf on the first autumn day grants a year of good fortune.
Fantastic.
And one last one. Whistling at night invites ghosts into your home. I thought it was the reverse. I thought you whistled at night to keep ghosts away.
Yeah, interesting.
And so they're very interesting superstitions that I researched heavily, or perhaps just typed into ChatGPT, make up some superstitions for me, and that's what popped out.
Which ones are real?
None of them. They're all
None of them? Some of them are real.
No.
So definitely putting new shoes on the table is bad. Maybe they're all just bad luck and they've just invented what's going to happen. So ChatGPT just hallucinated all of those.
Yes.
Oh, that makes more sense now because spilling salt does mean something, but I can't remember what it is. Okay.
Yes. So
fantastic.
there you go. So are we going to update our rankings on this particular one?
Well, let's have a think about it. At the moment, my top ranking is The Lady Vanishes. I think I will, well, it's hard to tell, of course, because we've only done 11 movies so far. I think I am still putting this one, maybe I'm putting it under Rope. I think I prefer Rope on a rewatch, and I think that might have reversed the position there.
There you go.
I think I'm putting it above Rebecca.
Right.
And under Rope is mine.
So, and overall, do you think would it go up from your original 19th slot, or are you still pretty happy with that?
I would be still happy with it at 19, I think.
Yeah. I originally had a 24th, which feels a little low. Maybe I bump it a couple of slots, but not too many. As I said, it doesn't really
Isn't
do
one
it
of
for
your
me.
favourites, yeah.
Just on the re-ranking of ones we've watched here so far, I think I'm putting this well down. I think I'm putting this at number 9 of the ones we've done so far. So below The Lodger, but above Spellbound.
Right. Yep.
So I think I enjoy the madcap nonsense of The Lodger a little bit more than this one.
Yeah.
Which puts me in a minority, I know, but there you go. Now it's time for a deep dive into a scene. Usually we'd play some audio here of the scene in question, but we're going to talk about the scene with almost the final scene of the movie. This is the Charlie's wrestling on the train as he tries to throw her to her death, and there's just a lot of mostly just dramatic music at that point and her screaming at him to stop doing it. So we'll spare you the audio of that.
Yep.
But in terms of deep dive, I mostly just wanted to discuss something that I noticed, that the two of them holding one another at this final struggle was very similar to the dancers waltzing that we kept cutting into for transitions between scenes.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
I'm not quite sure what that means, but I went back and watched this scene a little bit more closely. His arm is around her back as if they're waltzing. We even pan down to their feet, which are moving back and forth as they kind of struggle.
Yep.
It's they spin, they turn. I mean, it does end with somebody being thrown into a train, which is rare in most dance halls. But apart from that, I think it's a little bit dancey.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess it's the younger Charlie doing to the older Charlie what he was doing to those widows, presumably.
Yeah.
Do we find out how he was killing them?
No, we didn't. Presumably he wasn't throwing them all from trains. But,
No.
Presumably,
Or dancing them to their deaths.
just for hours on end.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you could understand why he would make that negative speech if he had to dance them to their death. So
it'd be exhausting.
Yeah, it'd be exhausting.
Yes. I mean, we did mention in our original podcast on this that there was this kind of weird, not quite incestuous, but tending in that direction relationship between the two of them. And, he gave her a ring. She's ecstatic at seeing him. I mean, she clearly enjoys the way that other girls look at them when they walk down the street arm in arm. So there's a weird-ish relationship between the two of them.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of culminates in this kind of end scene, which kind of gives us a glimpse into how, he might have operated when seducing and murdering the widows.
Yes, that's true, that he was irresistible to some people, and that obviously spanned young to old as well.
Yeah, I mean, we see the widows being drawn to him wherever he goes. He pops into the bank and there's like 5 of them come out of the walls and just like, oh, who's this young man?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting.
Because Charlie is the only one we actually get to see him try to kill in the entire movie.
That's right. Yeah.
We don't see any
don't
of
see
the
any
murders.
flashbacks or
Yeah.
anything else. Yeah, I think that is really interesting that we don't really see too much backstory, and I suppose we don't need to. It's all just hinted at.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. And of course, as soon as Uncle Charlie is thrown off the train, we do cut straight to the waltzing dancers before we segue into that final scene at the funeral. So yeah, that's the deep dive.
It seemed to be a gamble. There weren't any walls, just a lot of... Man was walking around with a large pair
Darlington sleeping tablets. The proven drowsiness of somebody telling you about their boring dreams.
A man was hiding behind a tall chimney, and he had a small... Just then, the proprietor came in and accused him of cheating. Up to 7 afoot.
All right, so if Hitchcock had time again to redo this movie, if he had a few more years on him and he wanted to redo this movie in the way that he often did with other movies that he made, and it would have been, another 80 years to think about
81 years, yeah.
So what would he do differently on this movie? If this was done again now, how would Hitchcock do it?
Well, as suggested by Freddie over on Patreon, we always consult our good friends at ChatGPT for some alternative titles just to update things. So here are a handful for Shadow of a Doubt. You can give thumbs up or thumbs down on this one. Charming Uncle Charlie.
No, thumbs down.
Thumbs down. Uncle Dearest.
Definite thumbs down on that one.
All right, this one's interesting. ChatGPT had a couple here where it lent into the Hitchcock theme, but didn't quite get it right. So dial M for matricide. No, it's not quite matricide, but dial W for widowside. I don't know, but it had a crack at it. So.
Yeah, that's a valiant effort. It's sort of what a 6 or 7 year old might come up with if it was trying to. Yeah.
Yes, it also offered the man who knew too much (open brackets) about his niece (close brackets).
I like that one.
It doesn't quite work. It should be the other way around. It should be
Yeah.
the niece who knew too much. But yeah,
It should be the niece who knew too much. I think that's a better title in a way.
Yeah.
Shadow of a Doubt.
It's getting there. It was a couple of decent stabs there.
Yeah,
And,
I think that's great. That's
yes.
really funny. All right, so for the niece who knew too much, this next movie, what would Hitchcock have done? I think, and we often used to go, how would modern technology change a movie? So he would have to put some more modern features into the movie. I feel like there's no chance that he would be unknown. So there's going to be a little bit more in the way of him trying to put false personas online, perhaps.
Yeah.
There would be a little bit more in the confusion and the kind of doppelganger of the niece. Maybe he's posting as the niece.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
So
yeah.
I feel like there's a lot more confusion there allowable with the changes to people faking each other's personalities. I think that would really draw, and Hitchcock would have been right in on that.
Yeah, I think so. The other thing I was thinking was, and we mentioned this earlier, the kind of this weird link between the Charlies. I just wonder if Hitchcock might have lent. It's not really his style to have telepathy as an actual power. Like I think the similarities between the two of them are more just a thematic flourish in this thing rather than any actual link. But it seems weird to kind of gesture in that direction.
Yeah.
And then not follow through with it. So
and not like Vertigo. A lot more coincidences that happened in Vertigo. That kind of slightly destabilizing.
Yeah.
How could that be? How could I have the same thought as Uncle
I mean,
Charlie at the same time? I mean, they should have been bumping into each other. She should have, for example, in the library, maybe she turned around a corner and there he was.
Yes.
So I think that would have really improved things, perhaps.
Because there's no real explanation for how she's humming the Merry Widow when he's been, trying to avoid being caught as the Merry Widow murderer. Like, that's just, I guess...
That is a coincidence, but it's, that more of that would have been more interesting, I think.
Yeah. And again, as I mentioned, I think I just want a little bit more plot in this one. It feels a bit too plot light for my tastes. So I would have liked a little bit more, cat and mouse between the two Charlies. And as I said before, get rid of the detectives. I don't think they're needed at all. Just have her against him, and she's trying to get him out of there, and he wants to stay and milk all the widows for all their money.
Not enough peril. There's no one in danger here except perhaps Charlie because she's found out.
Yeah.
There needed to be some more peril for the mother, perhaps. Yeah. There needed to be a little bit more peril for a family friend, maybe a teacher of hers, maybe the librarian is in peril. One of these, he needs to have his sights set on someone in the town that is very close to Charlie.
Yes.
And that would have been, and I do think maybe the librarian or maybe someone that she is very attached to.
Yeah, yes. I think that would make it stronger. What modern actors would you have cast in this remake that we're pondering here?
Well, we don't have to think about it for Niece Charlie. It has to be Florence Pugh every time.
Yes. I was thinking maybe for Uncle Charlie, perhaps Tom Cruise.
Oh, yes. Tom Cruise would be great there.
He's got that kind of vibe of charming yet kind of psychotic as well.
Slipping straight into that speech, I can just imagine him.
I think they're the two main characters. And then one I wanted to pop up is this is incredibly niche, but both times now that I've watched Shadow of a Doubt, it's immediately struck me how much the neighbour Herb, who's played by Hume Cronin, looks like Bob Balaban. Right. And Bob Balaban is probably most famous as one of the studio execs in season 4 of Seinfeld.
Right.
And I went and checked. I found some images of both of them. They're not as similar as they think.
They're pretty similar.
But they're pretty similar,
right?
Right?
Pretty similar.
Yeah.
So I agree with that.
Maybe he can pop in and play that role.
Yeah, fantastic.
What about a sequel idea? Have you got a sequel idea?
Well, the next generation of Charlies, perhaps. I actually like the idea that niece Charlie, she's killed Uncle Charlie now. That sets her off on some kind of psychological trauma.
Yep.
She then turns around and starts to murder
widowers.
I think that's definitely going to set up the next generation.
Yes.
So, and then of course she's then visited by someone who's named after her. The family
nephew
tradition,
Charlie.
Continues on. I think that's a wonderful idea. What? How many years later would that be?
Oh, let's 25 years later.
Right.
So you've got enough time for Charlie's younger sister to grow up, have a son, and he's a teenager or something. Comes to visit.
So this
Aunt
is sort
Charlie.
of late 60s, early 70s sitcom territory.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's not a sitcom. Maybe it's a drama.
Yeah, I think it's a drama. I think there's the two, another generation of Charlies battling against one another.
That's
I think
great.
that's fun. As for a prequel, I think rather than a prequel, we should have like a companion movie following the other suspect for this crime, the other suspect, Merry Widow Murderer.
Well, that's the wrong man, isn't it?
He's clearly the wrong man.
Yeah.
He's the more classical Hitchcock wrongly accused hero. He's hunted by the police for a crime he definitely didn't commit. We do know there's a bit of a grim ending for him, which might be a bit of a struggle to ride around.
Well, of course, that's just a fake ending, right? That's someone else who went into the propeller because, of course, you can't recognise people after they've been chopped up in a plane propeller. So I think that the wrong man got away.
Ah, beautiful. That's much better. I was thinking that maybe he would have to sacrifice himself to save a loved one. But that's much better. Yeah. Yes. Fantastic. All right. So what about an 8-part TV show? Do we have any ideas for that?
Well, the whole town being obsessed by murders. I mean, I guess in some ways that was a bit underrated too, because that was a nice touch that they were continually talking about how they would personally get away with murders.
Yes.
Sometimes at the same time as Uncle Charlie's trying to kill the niece. So we need more of that, don't we? If the neighbour and their various followers and people who are carrying on with that.
I think just instead of Alfred Hitchcock presents, Herbie Hawkins presents, and it's just that dude introducing the crime of the week.
Fantastic.
Yes. Now, but before we go through what else you should watch here, let's say happy birthday. Happy birthday to Jamaica Inn, which turned 85 last month.
Right.
And Dial M for Murder, which turned 70.
There you go.
And next month, Marnie will be 60 and Blackmail will be 95 years old.
They're getting up there, aren't they?
Yes. Yep. But what are some related movies according to Google if you enjoyed this particular one?
Okay, so if you enjoyed this movie, you might enjoy Out of the Past, 1947. The stars here were Robert Mitchum, Jane Greer and Kirk Douglas.
Yep.
And the synopsis, Jeff Bailey seems to be a mundane gas station owner in remote Bridgeport, California. But when a mysterious stranger arrives in town, Jeff is forced to return to the dark world he tried to escape.
Oh, that sounds ominous.
Yes.
Also from a similar era, Sorry, Wrong Number.
Oh, yes, famous movie.
From 1948. This is Barbara Stanwyck and Burt Lancaster. A bedridden woman overhears the plot of murder while on the telephone. She attempts to help her husband solve the mystery and prevent the crime.
Fantastic. And that's sort of in the sort of same realm as Rear Window in some ways.
Yes. And I think some of these older ones, these might be the ones we go back and look in our next season of Patreon
Sorry,
episodes.
Wrong Number would be a good one that we need to put that on our list.
So we've got a great big list of all these ones that are similar. So
that's right.
Yeah, we can go through them.
But a more modern movie as well, Stoker from 2013. This one stars Mia Wasikowska and Nicole Kidman and Matthew Good. After India's father dies, her Uncle Charlie, who she never never knew existed, comes to live with her and her unstable mother, and then she suspects this mysterious man has ulterior motives, but she also becomes infatuated with him.
Yes, that's very similar.
Very similar.
I think
Is that a remake?
The director of Stoker, it's not quite a remake, but I think he was heavily inspired by Shadow of a
Great.
Doubt. And of course, if you don't like Shadow of a Doubt, then don't watch any of those movies.
No, you can instead watch the next movie that we're going to be watching, and that we're always watching the Best Picture nominee. So
always.
Most
So sometimes we skip it.
That's right. It depends how bad it is. But in this case, we're looking forward to this one because the Best Picture was Casablanca.
Yes.
And that's directed by Michael Curtiz and starring, of course, Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, and Paul Henreid, who I don't know anything about.
No, we will find out next month, though, because we will be going through all the major characters, Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress. We'll be trying to see if Shadow of a Doubt was robbed. I've never seen Casablanca, so I know of it, obviously.
Yep.
I know many of the plot details. I know the final line, but I've never actually watched it.
I think you know the final line.
Well, yes. We will see. So, we'll check that out next month. So, until then, I'm Dan Lipke, being very particular about eggs as I bake a cake.
And I'm Kat Jones, urging young women not to jaywalk. Thank you for listening to HitchPod. Please come and talk to us on Twitter at HitchPod Tweets or on Facebook by searching for HitchPod. And you can also email us directly at feedback@hitchpodonline.com. And if you want more Hitchcock content, please consider becoming a HitchPod supporter. Just go to patreon.com/HitchPod. And for as little as $2 a month, you can get access to our Season 1 coverage of every single Hitchcock movie, as well as bonus episodes on Hitchcock-esque movies. Invitations also to watch live rewatches and much, much more.
Oh, you mean what does he do? Well, he's just in business. You know the way men are. My husband now, he works in a bank, but I think Charles is just in business.